Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to the latest edition of Man and Nature, produced by Batrisyia Afrina. I am your host, Sheikh Muhammad Saifuddeen bin Sheikh Muhammad Salleh. Alhamdulillah, today we have another fascinating topic on the general theme of sustainability to be discussed with our special guest. The topic chosen for today's discussion is ensuring sustainability in the textile industry. And to discuss this topic, I'm happy to introduce this week's special guest, Emeritus Professor Dr. Nik Meriam Nik Sulaiman, Advisor, University Malaya Sustainable Development Centre or UMSDC. She's also a Fellow and Council Member of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, ASM. Assalamualaikum and welcome to Man and Nature, Prof.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for accepting our invitation to be on air in Man and Nature.
My pleasure, and thank you, Dr. Shaikh, as well as IKIM for that matter, for picking up this not often discussed subject.
Yes, I think the reason why we have you on board today is to touch on something that I think many people don't think about.
Correct.
So, Prof, let's start. Everyone knows that clothes that we wear are one of the necessities in our life. Hence, the need for the textile industry, which is a sector of the economy that is involved in the production, processing, and also distribution of fibers, yarns, fabrics, and finished clothing or textile products. However, as you have rightly mentioned earlier, not many people are aware of the impact that the textile industry has on the environment. So, as an overview to our discussion today, what's your initial opinion on this?
Okay, thank you again, Dr. Shaikh, and Alhamdulillah for given the opportunity to share some insights on something that I've been working on for some time. But let me give the big picture dulu. What is textile in the first place?
Right.
So, and the big picture so that we can see, I like to use the ecosystem approach as well as the life cycle so that we can see why is it important to stakeholders including us. So, very simply, a textile is any material. This material, kita belum sampai lagi tahap halimunan, where you can wear, you can disappear. So, it is a tangible material that you produce by interlacing fiber in many ways, whether you use weaving, knitting, crochet, and so on. It's bonding together. And we have to remember also the primary sources of raw material for textile are also important to consider. So we have the natural fiber like cotton, linen, wool, silk, and don't forget bringing forward waste material from agricultural commodity like kanaf, like pineapple waste can also be made into natural fiber. Then we have of course the synthetic fiber like polyester, nylon, acrylic, and they are blended fiber. So when we look at and let's see what is it used for. Tadi just now, Dr. Shaikh was telling about the clothes that we wear. Important reminder for all of us: clothing is required from birth to death. When we come out to the world, we have to be clothed. When we die, we also need to be clothed. So
That's right.
it's important to see, the use of textiles and apparel, whether everyday wear. It also is also used in home textile, meaning that your curtain, upholstery, your bedding, linen, they are part of your own home environment or even in hotel. Then there are also technical textile. For example, medical fabric. Remember during COVID, the amount of things that the PPE has to use, how many layers and so on. Remember our abang bomba, they have to wear special clothing. Remember also institution like the defense forces, they have uniform. Even for certain organization, they have their own uniform. And beyond that, we also have geotextile.
Okay.
And these are technical textile. When you have a landslide, you need to cover it first and you use geotextile to do the remediation and so on. Automotive fabric, whether you use EV or whatever, not all are leather bound. Inside, you use textile. Another area would be, not many people think about, would be industrial, conveyor belt, and so on. And the artistic part will be the art and the decor, wall hanging, tapestry, fiber, and so on that reflects the the culture and the heritage of any society or civilization. So how do we get to this stage from knowing the primary raw material, how they are used? How do you get to the textile stage? There are a few steps because we want to see the whole life cycle approach. So you need to extract the raw material. Even if you take natural fiber, you have to grow the cotton. Then if you take the synthetic material, you have to mine. You get fossil fuel, you make the derivative from petroleum, then only you get the polyester chip. Then you have to do the processing, going forward to the actual material before you have the finished production assembly in whatever form that we want to do, like in the applications that I have said just now. So next come the distribution part. Office, retail, distribution center. Those steps form the supply chain and the logistic, because embedded in the processes are including the transportation part that people also forget. And then when you look at the whole life cycle, you have to add on post-production, the consumer. And the consumer use it and then waste it. So this is where you see a more bigger picture of what textile industry is all about. And the stakeholders, when we understand the life cycle, then we know who are involved. There will be the producer, manufacturer, the brand and the retailer, the innovator, recycler, if we practice recycling, the NGO, technical organization, because I think for any trade, there will be people, they will set up an association. For example, for textile, the professional organization is MTMA, Malaysian Textile Association. They will look after their own interests. Then there would be policymakers who gives money, so financial institution. And last and not least, the consumer, you and me, every day.
Right. And our listeners as well.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Prof, for that very enlightening overview, because I think many of us, including myself, were not aware that, there are so many stakeholders involved when we talk about the textile. So, however, you mentioned about wastage. So, one staggering statistic that I saw being shared, especially on social media, is that Malaysians throw out 195,300 tons of textile waste annually. And definitely this will end up in our landfills. So, in terms of the environment, what impact does textile waste have?
Okay, thank you for that question. Very appropriate. But let me go back to continue with, the raw material, the life cycle, and so on. Generally, what will be impact of all the stages before we come to the waste part?
Okay.
So, as a summary, the environment impact of textile industry, according to all the stages, would be energy usage. We have to do the, all the processing would need energy. And energy can be in the form of electricity, which also will become carbon emission related, meaning that when you burn fossil fuel, there will be combustion. When there are combustion, there will be carbon dioxide being released, and that becomes a greenhouse gas. So connected to the energy use will be carbon emission. The processing also require a lot of water, the dyeing process and so on. If you can imagine, if you go from one color to the other, you have to dye, you have to take off the dye and so on. That will cause water pollution if not properly treated, right? So there should be some footprint there. And of course, there will be waste, although I'm quite allergic to the term waste.
Okay.
Because to me, waste is a resource that is out of place.
Okay.
And waste in this case can include overproduction, can include unsold good. They produce but they didn't have some inventory not quite correct, so they'll be unsold goods, but they are good condition but considered waste because cannot be sold. And there are also when you have that after post consumer, there will also be the waste that what you were saying just now lah. And the other thing that we have to be aware nowadays is about microplastic, that many people are also not aware. Meaning that when you wear or use synthetic fiber they do release microplastic during washing. If you can understand, when you put your clothes into the washing machine, if you have synthetic fiber, natural fiber, you also have, but less. But these are the microplastic coming out or released during washing.
Which we do not see with our naked eye.
No, because they are less than 5 micrometers and so on. And this will go into your drain. If you have septic tank, it will go septic tank, which will be discharged storm. It will go to the river, goes to the sea. If you have integrated water treatment system, sewage system, it will go to the treatment plant. But it won't, because they are too small. The technology is not used yet. I don't say not there, not used yet to trap the microplastic. In the end, it will end up in the ocean and in the river.
Okay, that sounds scary, to be honest.
And yeah, so and then the question about the landfill and the staggering amount, correct. If you remember, when people throw textile waste, normally from household, they are contaminated.
Okay.
So when you go to the landfill and you bury it, hopefully it is a sanitary landfill. It depends on what contaminants they have on the textile. If they are organic based, they may be compostable and biodegradable. But if you can imagine that they have used it to wipe, lubricants or oil, that becomes another waste. That is a problem. Not the material itself yet. The contaminants on the materials or clothing or waste material, textile that you put into the landfill, they will also clog up the landfill very quickly. If it is natural material, it will make the lifespan of the landfill shorter. If they have contaminant, it can be degraded into many forms. It can go into the groundwater, it can go through the soil, it can go to the river from the leachate and so on. So there are issues about, putting textile materials into the landfill, which we should try to avoid because there are ways and means to solve this.
Right. It's certainly an eye-opener, Prof. I think one of our problem is, when it comes to textile, is that we tend to overconsume. Consumers tend to buy more or buy things that we don't actually need. We buy clothes, we rarely wear them, or they end up in the cupboard without being used. So after a while, when we no longer fit into these clothes, we would throw them away, ending up as textile waste. So what should we do when it comes to clothes to ensure that we do not overconsume? I know it's easier said than done, but I think something needs to be done in any case.
I think I am guilty as charged, as with the rest of us. And I like the way that you describe it as overconsumption. We need clothes, fine. But overconsumption is something else. It's beyond what you really need. And now overconsumption in terms of clothing, we call it fast fashion.
Fast fashion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fast fashion is a big issue nowadays, particularly with easy-to-buy marketing strategies. At the tip of your finger, you can buy any amount of clothes you want. And I think for us in Malaysia, if you open the cupboard of a Muslim lady, you will see so many colored hijab that I don't know when we wear. But fast fashion is everywhere, not only in Malaysia, it's all over the world. And the scale of production is enormous. If I can quote from Ellen MacArthur Foundation, each year, over 100 billion new garments are made worldwide.
Okay. 100 billion.
100 billion. This is from Ellen MacArthur
Okay.
Foundation for the study. And this is more than what was produced just 2 decades ago, meaning that we are already quarter way into the 21st century, 2025. 20 years ago is, we already in the early part of the 21st century. But the fast pace is, is awesome. The rapid churning of style, new collection on the shelves every few weeks. And what more, with Malaysia, we have so many, events, weddings, Hari Raya. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have, to be able to adorn ourselves with nice clothes, but the trick is about overconsumption. So from the same report, we find that the average person it's around the world. It's a global figure. Now buy 60 more clothing than they did in the year 2000. But they keep them only half as long. So that put a lot of pressure already on the output in terms of natural resources, the factories, the workers, and so on. So this will set a cascade of environmental issues. So that is setting the scene in terms of the fast fashion. But there are also people who, the opposite of fast fashion is they call slow fashion.
Okay.
It's a new terminology. So what do we do about it? Can something be done? Of course, something can be done, and it requires a mixture of solution. It can be systemic changes in the way of the production and so on, corporate responsibility, and consumer behavior. Let's talk about consumer first, and that's the one that is quite difficult because you will need to have education and awareness. There have been many ways that I have seen that people have started to sort of recycle. They can also have, where you can rent instead of
Buying.
you can rent it. And I think this happens in Malaysia for weddings and
That's
so
right.
on. You can have upcycling because I visited Singapore, I think last year, and I found there are already mechanism where in every HDB flat there will be a place where they can do recycling. There are also shops that will take in your one-off event clothes. For example, if you buy your clothes and you don't rent it, that other people can buy. So it's a one-stop center. They call it looping. And fashion circularity is
Okay.
already in place. And I think promote slow fashion and quality over quantity, meaning that we don't just buy clothes just because of one off, because the color matches the tudung matches my color of my dress, but we should go for more durable, longer lasting. But this also means that the responsibility of the designer should come in. We should work together with them, so that when they make clothes, they have in mind quality. People can use it longer. Even if they cannot use it for longer, they are able to disassemble it, repair it, upcycle in many other ways. So making, the duration of the product on a longer basis. And then, of course, this will also need changes in the way of the other stakeholders, meaning that we should incentivize clothing, repair, rental, and swapping. Meaning that there should be repair services. And now you can find even in shopping mall, even in Masjid Bangsa, I saw that there is a repair where you can do alteration, meaning if you have grown in the size of yourself, you can actually repair it. So when I think designers are important in this respect, they have to inbuild sustainability features into their design so that it's easy to repair and so on. So rental model, there's so many other models that we have, and eco-labeling, especially for the younger generation, they are quite, those who are sustainability informed, they would like to see the label that says it is eco-friendly. I don't want to mention name, but there are global names that accept clothes in Malaysia, that you can go and deposit clothes and you get some point, and there are a few already here in Malaysia that you can do that, where you can get points if you recycle for them.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some of the initiatives that we mentioned being implemented here, especially in big cities. Perhaps we can, get these initiatives also into the rural areas as well.
Yes.
Right, Prof. I'm also aware that you are involved in the Clean Batik Initiative. Perhaps you can share some information on this initiative with our listeners.
I am very happy to share this. This is one of the defining moments of my life as academic. The Batik Initiative is funded by the EU project. They call it EU Switch Asia. They started in 2009 to 2019, 2009 to 2013. They started first with Indonesia, and I find this is the first holistic attempt to get everybody involved in terms of doing cleaner technology in the in the textile industry, which in this case is batik. They also have, issue about tackling production. Then, giving literacy to the consumer on how to buy eco-friendly clothes and policy dialogue. Now, they started off in Indonesia with 500 per batik. And in Malaysia, they came over after they have set some, best practices from Indonesia. Now, when they come to Malaysia, they were looking for a technical consultant. By that time, my personal journey, I was already into expanding my engineering background into sustainability, and I think I am quite lucky to have been the founder chair for Sustainability Science Research Cluster in in 2009. Before that, I also had training in cleaner technology through another consortium in Denmark. In terms of technical and so on, is already there, and in terms of the outlook, the mindset is there with me. And then some administrative job that I do, managing quite a few administrative posts in Malaysia. What is not in the TOR is they want somebody local.
Okay.
And the project happens to be in Kelantan and Terengganu. I happen to come from Kelantan. I think that clinches the deal.
Right.
So I cannot escape it. So, but we have to tune it to the local condition. What is happening in Indonesia cannot be taken, all the way to Malaysia, because we have different setting for batik. And batik, by the way, has a special definition. It's any piece of material that uses resist technique to do the pattern. So you can have batik-like material, but it's not by definition batik. This is
Pseudo batik.
Pseudo, but they have batik pattern.
Right. Okay.
So this is an artisanal part of the batik industry in Malaysia. It's very artisanal, very contextual, very localized. So we choose 100 in Kelantan, Terengganu. I was really, this is the first time I visited some parts of my own state that I have never seen before. And they range from people who work under their own house, 3 in a family, supported by the local people to do the painting and so on, to a higher, number. So I also had training in Indonesia, in Jakarta for 2 weeks, training of trainers, so that I can come back and adopt some of the best practices that they have done in Indonesia. And then mainly in Kelantan and Terengganu, we went for the part on the production that will be more on good housekeeping, even good housekeeping, meaning that how do you store your chemical, how do you manage your chemical when you weigh it, and so on. How do you, make yourself the safety, because the fixing agent for batik is using silicate mainly in Malaysia, and silicate is quite viscous. It can get into your eyes. It's quite, not safe for your skin and so on, besides using dyes that are toxic. So in terms of economic issue, they are quite astute. They know that it costs money to do batik production, so they're quite aware. But the part that's not quite there yet would be on the environment, because it's not like you produce batik. These are small scale, even micro MSE. So they don't produce batik every day. It's a batch process, but they use a lot of water, and they just don't have the capacity to inbuild a treatment system. They either throw down the drain. If they enter the river, it will go into the river. It will be colored for a while and then it disappears. So people forget. If you go into the ground, water, nobody sees it. So, but then again, in trying to make them understand the environmental impact, you cannot tell them to do a technology that is high-end. It should be fit for purpose, low and innovative. And the first thing is for them to minimize the pollution. So that will be the production part. on the consumer part, we will be going to trade exhibition. In fact, we went to IKIM. We were supposed to, talk to agency like Kratangan to bring these people abroad and so on. So that will be on the consumer part with the labeling and so on. And with the policy, we had so many dialogue with all the stakeholders, be it at the state level, national level, national representative at the state level, like DOE office in Kelantan, will be Kraft Tangan would be the one that represents, the not only the textile, all things to do with textile. We talked to the state councillor, we talked to the policy makers and so on. So the policy dialogue was also there. So for me, it's a very interesting time for an academic to be given the opportunity when the work you have been doing along the way suddenly snowball into an opportunity that you can really see the impacts on the
Alhamdulillah,
environment.
Alhamdulillah. I'm very happy to hear your journey in this regard with regards to sustainability, and I think this has to do with my next question. As a person with an engineering background that later on goes into sustainability, in your opinion, what role should an engineer play in ensuring environmental sustainability?
Oh, okay. I really like to continue a little bit more
Sure.
about the Clean Batik and the legacy.
Okay.
When we give projects to a group or cohort of people and we leave, the exit strategy is very important.
Right. To ensure sustainability.
Yeah, while I was doing the project, we went there every month. I had 4 technical assistants that go around and visit, remind them, make progress report and so on. But what happens after you leave? So this is one learning point that I feel that I would like to share, that when you do a project, hand-holding, what next? How do you empower them to continue? The exit strategy is very important, especially when it involves the community at large. So what I tried to do in my case, following the CBI, I did another project with KPT, which Mohd, Ministry of Higher Education at that time, knowledge transfer program. And I adopted 2 batik in detail to continue the legacy of CBI. The other one was I was also, I volunteered to be a fellow at the Athenaeum School of Government to come up with a module on inclusive development, and I chose batik. So it's also available online for this project.
Right.
And fast forward, you need the government policy as well. At one time, if you remember, every Thursday you have to wear batik,
Yes,
right? And school teachers have to wear batik, even to the point that even the batik production have special category for market diversification of batik. This is what they call, this is batik for cikgu sekolah. So they will have a special rate because you cannot afford to change your batik every day. And fast forward, I'm happy to note, just this year, we have another sustainable batik initiative by Security Commission, that because there has been a directive that we should be actually, start to use batik as a national symbol and so on. So the process comes in stops and gap, but now it's picking up. So you will see more of this in the future.
Inshallah.
In terms of batik.
Right. So going back to my
Go
question,
back
perhaps to conclude, that will be my last question.
Yeah.
How do you see engineers in ensuring environmental sustainability?
In general, the altruistic or noble profession of engineering means you have to provide goods, services to the society in peacetime and non-peacetime. And I stress that very much because in peacetime it means the perturbation that you get in terms of solution is for thriving. But when you have non-peacetime, as we see now post-normal time, but there's a lot of turbulence, there's a lot of uncertainties, you will have to cater for that as well. Because that would mean you have to take care of disaster, both man-made as well as non-man-made. So engineers have the responsibility to be able to the life cycle of preparation of material, because during the preparation of material, you are going to extract material, raw material, and you have to use energy. So this have to be done on a basis that is cost less environmental impact. It has to be eco-resilient. It has to be environmentally friendly. And I think to balance all that and in engineering curriculum in that sense, nowadays we need to have a sustainability literacy portion, and in which in some cases of engineering, they do have that already inbuilt, because we have to see, to connect the dots between the impact that you have when you design, when you process, when you provide the services, what can be done in a more a way that you minimize the waste. You use the resource efficiently, whether you're talking about renewable, non-renewable, or find ways where you can have the minimum impact. Because as we have seen, it's hardly a case whereby you can have zero emission. So we have to be practical. I'm being very practical here. But what solutions do you have? And there will be a hierarchy of strategy that you can do in terms of being resource efficient, minimum waste production, and minimum impact to the environment in so many connective ways. Because the other one that engineers should also be attuned to would be about risk management.
I see.
When engineers, especially I'm a process engineer in the beginning, and you made these ozone depleting substances, never in the mind was the risk factor that it was one day go up to the ozone layer and disrupt it. So the risk factor is now also need to be realized by engineering profession in providing the goods and services and technology for good and all that matter. So engineers do play a very big role in terms of trying to ascertain that the work that we do in providing goods, services, and now we have the AI, the machine learning, digital computing, quantum computing, so on, that you can inbuild, so that you can have an environment that will cater, that will cause more efficient use of resources, minimum disruption to the environment, and so on. So engineers do play a big role in that.
Right. Thank you very much, Prof, for the enlightening discussion. I wish we have more time. I've got some more questions to ask you actually, but unfortunately time is not on our side. But in any case, what you have mentioned basically I think wraps up our discussion for today nicely. Our topic has been ensuring sustainability in the textile industry. Personally, Prof, I've learned a lot from you in our short discussion today, Alhamdulillah, and I believe our listeners have also benefited from our discussion. So unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for Men and Nature this week. Before we end, allow me again to express my gratitude to our special guest today, Emeritus Professor Dr. Nik Meriam Nik Sulaiman. Thank you for your insightful and also wonderful sharing, and I hope, inshallah, we will have other opportunities to meet again on the air. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I hope our discussion has provided much information to all who have been following the program. For the last 30 minutes, you've been listening to Men and Nature. I'm Shaikh Muhammad Saifuddeen bin Shaikh Muhammad Salleh, signing off until next week. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi